So here we are on the ground floor of Venice, and look at this. Every corner there is something to paint. Every place we go to there is a reflection in the water. It's a beautiful building scene. There's just no end to the number of subject matter that we like to do here. And I want to especially talk to you about the importance of reflected color in our paintings. Now, when we're in the studio, that's difficult to do because it's difficult to see. Especially if you're working with a photo reference. A photo reference will only show kind of grayed, lifeless colors in the shadows, or it won't pick up the reflected color. But when we're on location, we can see it, then we can incorporate it into our paintings. So let's do a building first. I want to show you that and the reflected color in the water, and then I'm going to show you reflected color in a bridge. So let's get started. I have one building that's receiving direct light, and it's at the far part of the canal there, and it is reflecting light into the canal, and of course that's called a reflection. But towards the right side is a building in shadow, and there's not that reflected color as vividly as the part that's receiving the light. So I want to talk about both parts, both aspects of that reflected color. So I'm going to start over here with this door, window, and another window right here. We've got another window up here. I'm going to establish the side of the building with this warm wash of color. And we've got a nice little dark door there we're going to put in. And typically, what I find my students will do is stop right there, because the steps are right there. And they're thinking, well, that's where the building ends, so that's where I'll stop with this wash of color. But I would recommend that we do something different here. Take the same wash of color that you have up here and run it right down into the water. Don't stop at the bottom of the building. Run it right down into the water. So think of light, I like to think of light as little ping pong balls. It comes down, hits this building, it's like a sticky ping pong ball. Picks up some of the color of that building, comes down into the water, hits that water, deposits some of that color there, and comes back into our eyes. I don't know if that optically, if there's any scientific credibility there, but that's the way it looks to me, and I like to think of it that way. So the idea is to not think about buildings being separate from what they're reflecting color into. Run that wash all the way down into it, and later, after it dries, you can come back in and establish some of the water and separate it out from the building. Now, I'm going to come over here to another spot on the right, and we have a building that's actually in shadow. And as I look down here, there's not much color in the canal. In this from this building, it turns into a green. So let's do that. And we have some arches here. I'll just suggest. So because this building is in shadow, it's much darker than this one in light. But the same thing applies for this building. Bring this color down into the water. And it's not as vivid. This is pretty obvious. The actual light reflected down here. There's quite a bit of color in here. But even in the shadow area, and even if I see, here's the point, even if I see a bunch of green here, and I really don't see this color up here reflecting down here, still put it in, because those colors are reflecting all over the place in there. Then later, I will come back and establish the water. Let's do that here now. Since this is starting to dry, we can do this now. Now I establish the water over the top of that reflected color. And it tends to make the painting look natural, like there's natural light, because it's bouncing down in here. It also gives a sense of color harmony, of vibrance to our paintings that we won't achieve if we just copy the flat black color that a photograph has. Now I'm going to run this green over this brown, and it's the same idea, whether it's the light side of a building or the shadow side. Run those colors on down into that water there. Now, if you have a street scene where you have a sidewalk and you don't have water, I still run those reflected colors into that sidewalk. And then I establish the sidewalk later. I'm always looking for passages to run colors into each other. Once again, it harmonizes the painting, and it also makes it look more like it has a natural look of light about it. And it's actually just beautiful. It's so much more beautiful than the lifeless shadows that you think you're seeing or that might be represented in a photograph. Now let's go on over to a bridge over the canal, and I want to show you this reflected light in a little different way.